Hey guys, it's Crystal from Essentially Tarot. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to do a walkthrough of a deck that I've already showcased in my deck collection videos, but it's not one that I see very often. So I thought it'd be cool to do a walkthrough of the Ritual Abuse Tarot. Now, before we get started, this deck is still in print. You can actually grab it through Printer Studio. It is by Ryan Sheffield. Now, there used to be a PDF guidebook. However, the website where you could obtain said PDF guidebook no longer seems to be an active website. So, getting it through Printer Studio, it just comes in this plain little white tuck box. There's no guidebook that comes with it. So, be forewarned, if you do order it, you more or less are going to be reading this deck intuitively, which I don't think is problematic because it does more or less follow a Rider-Waite based system without being an exact clone. I'm going to zoom in just a little closer. Okay, there, I think that's good. So these are obviously the backs. They are a nice cardstock. It is a linen cardstock. It's nice. It's slippery. I was going to shuffle them. I have them in order. That would have been silly. As you can see, I haven't edged mine or anything like that, but let's just take a look at the whole deck. And again, I did show some cards from this in my deck collection, but I thought it deserved kind of its own video. So I probably should have given a forewarning. If you're not into horror or horror imagery or sensitive imagery, this is probably not the deck for you. I would suggest checking out my friendly deck collection videos. They have the much nicer, happier decks. This guy is very dark. It's very, very shadow. So here you can see we have the Fool. I'm actually going to move in even a little more, I think. Let's see. Is that better? Maybe. It's hard to kind of keep these in place because they are very slick. So we see we have the Fool here with his bundle of eyeballs. But still that traditional Fool energy with him, you know, stepping off the cliff. Nothing too crazy there. Here we have the Magician. Now, I think it's important to note if you're into more classic symbolism, there's obviously some missing here. It's not a traditional deck. So your Magician, yes, he's holding a head and he has a knife on the table, but that's it. His tools are not actually included. Here's our High Priestess. She's a little angry for the High Priestess, but I think that's kind of the cool thing about this deck is that it kind of takes away from the scary cards in tarot because every card in this deck is kind of scary. So we're kind of looking at shadow even in the lighter cards. And it kind of asks you to look at things a little differently. Like here we have the Empress, but you can see she's actually shackled and chained down here. So, you know, when you're reading with this deck, it kind of asks you to look at things a little differently than you would in a traditional sense. We have the Emperor here, which there's only 2 rats pictured, but I like to think of this as like a Rat King card. Like, you know, the rats that are kind of my fingers are all up in the camera, sorry guys. The rats that are kind of like intertwined and intermingled with their tails and whatnot. It's kind of the vibe that I get from this because we can kind of see like their tails in the background here that are like crisscrossed. So yeah, I kind of read a little further into the imagery on that Emperor card. Here's the Hierophant. He's, you know, he's Hierophant-y. Hierophant-y. Some people say Hierophant. I tend to say Hierophant, but I think it's just because I'm from Jersey. And we tend to just change consonants and vowels whenever we feel like it. It's a terrible thing. The Lover's card cracks me up. I love that we have kind of like this full-bodied creature here with no legs, and they're just holding on to an arm. Like their lover literally has no body, just arms. So whereas this one's missing limbs, this one is just a limb. And I think that's great. I think you can kind of read a lot into that too. Here's your Chariot. He is really cool. He reminds me of like the ring wraiths from Lord of the Rings, right? Kind of, sort of, something like that. I don't know. There's definitely a vibe here that I feel like I've seen before. Here's our Strength card, which is interesting because if you look at her fingers, it's almost like her fingers have been chewed up and bloodied by the lion. So again, it kind of takes on a whole new depth and a whole new meaning of you know, in taming our wild side, are we doing more damage than good? You know, should we allow that wild side to kind of come out a little more often? Are we putting ourselves into a box for others? You know, you can kind of take this all different ways, which I think is really fun about this deck. Here's our Hermit. He's pretty hermity, pretty traditional hermity. Here's our Wheel of Fortune. I think he's great. I think he works. Here is our Justice card, which if you look, there's a head on one side of the scale and there's nothing on the other side, but it's interesting to see like his sword is kind of going through the other scale. So again, you could kind of read into that as well and say like, you know, I don't know where I'm going with that. Like, what's the price of getting what you want? I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying with that. But again, it gives you like different jumping off points. Don't listen to me. Here's the Hanged Man hanging from some meat hooks. Pretty, I don't know that's exactly as peaceful as a traditional hangman, right? Here's your Death card. I don't know why I'm like telling you like you can't read them. Sorry guys. But pretty traditional Death. You know, he's got his scythe, his robe, doing his thing. This one is interesting and it's a little tricky to make out. Some of these, because they are done in charcoal and they are done in the style of, you know, the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark artwork, some of them are a little hard to make out. It almost looks as though we have like this hooded figure and he's pouring the cup into someone's mouth. It's like he's holding their hair here and maybe pouring it over their face or into their mouth. Again, an interesting take on temperance. I'd even argue maybe a lack of temperance. So again, it kind of gives you a whole new perspective. Here's our Devil. Pretty devilly. He looks like he's holding a little person over here. The Tower. I don't know why, but this imagery is I don't know that it's very Tower-esque in the sense that, you know, we have this hanged figure here. I don't know that there's much rebuilding from that. But, you know, if you're not taking it literally, if you're taking it in a you know, a non-literal sense of like, ugh, you know, it was so bad, like I could just hang myself. Like there's coming back from that thought process. Again, this deck can be very triggering. So that's something to think about when working with this. When I purchased this, I definitely had no intentions of really reading for anyone but myself, because I knew it was going to be very dark. So here we have the Star and she's pouring her blood, potentially water, into the ground, and there's an arm kind of shooting up over here, which is interesting. Again, with the charcoal, it is a little hard. You know, we don't have that traditional water scene with the Star, so it is a little difficult to see what's going on there. But again, I feel like it's just kind of like another take entirely. Here we have the Moon. Admittedly, it's not my favorite Moon card. I feel like we could have done something a little more with this. But, you know, again, I feel like it speaks to maybe the darker side of the Moon. No pun intended. The sun cracks me up. And again, totally doesn't have those sun vibes in a positive way. This sun card almost speaks to me of like too much sun energy, like too much of a good thing. Because we have like this grimace in the sun. And then there's this person here who looks like they are not enjoying being in the sun. So yeah, just a funny take on that. Judgment, again, a more traditional approach to judgment. And the World. You can see some of the symbolism there as far as how they're posed. So not that far off. And here is our Ace of Cups. So again, it's definitely not a deck just this far in. I want to say it's not a deck that I would approach depending on my mindset. I think you have to be in a pretty healthy mindset to come at this deck, because otherwise you might get overwhelmed with the amount of darkness and negativity that it's so easy to find in the cards. I think it makes you work a little harder for the positivity, and that's not always a good thing either. But again, I think if you're approaching it with the right mindset, if you're approaching it to do shadow work and you are in a healthy mindset, I think it's okay. So here we have the Two of Cups, which is interesting because she is actually spilling her cup out with a bat in place of an angel, which is funny. Here's our Three of Cups in their caskets, hanging out, being friends, you know. This Four of Cups is my favorite. I think I did showcase this when I went through this in my deck video, my deck collection video. But here we have our Four Cups, and you know, the figure is missing from the picture here. But if you look really closely, there's actually 2 feet hanging from the tree. And I think it's a very interesting take on the Four of Cups. I think it's a very interesting take on, you know, I think I tend to look at the Four of Cups in 2 different ways. I tend to look at it as not settling, knowing that there's something better out for you, and that's why you're not accepting that 4th cup. But I also look at it as not accepting the gifts and the talents that you have and kind of turning away from them because maybe you don't feel like it's enough. And I think it's interesting here because it almost takes on this persona of turning away from that option and just deciding that it's not for you is essentially hanging yourself. Like you're throwing it away. So I thought that was an interesting take on it. I really enjoyed that card the first time I saw it. I was like, oh my goodness. Here we have our 5 of Cups. Again, a little more traditional. Here is our 6 of Cups. Now I have a hard time making peace with this 6 of Cups because nothing about this image says traditional 6 of Cups energy to me at all. And I think actually to me, it kind of speaks more of like, cause you see like this figure here is kind of coming out of these cups, almost like veins, like vein work, it looks like. And to me, it's almost like this creature he looks angry, but everybody looks a little angry in this deck, but it's almost like letting your emotions, become their own entity in a bad way, like not holding those emotions in a safe space and kind of letting them overtake a situation or overtake you. So maybe if we're looking at it from the sense of focusing too much on the past, living too much in the past, again, from a more shadow aspect, it kind of makes sense, I guess, in that way, that you're kind of giving your emotions so much energy and time that they're kind of becoming their own entity and taking over. Interesting thought, right? Here is our 7 of Cups. Slightly recognizable. Obviously, there's nothing in said cups, but we know. Our 8 of Cups, again, a little more traditional. You have your little figure here kind of walking. He's actually walking towards the cups. So, you know, as opposed to walking, typically we have our 8 of Cups here in a traditional Rider-Waite-Smith, right? So maybe he's walking towards new emotional ground rather than away from a situation. So, again, here's our 9 of Cups. I'm not really sure what that guy is doing, but he looks real happy about it. So, you know, 9 of Cups energy. And our 10 of Cups. Again, a little more traditional, but spooky. I love it. I really enjoy this artwork. I know like it's not for everyone. Here's our Page of Cups. And the core cards in here are wild. I mean, all of them are wild, really, let's be fair. But here we have our Page of Cups. She's kind of missing an eye, kind of missing part of her mouth. Which is interesting. You know, you could again try to kind of weave that in the shadow aspect of the Page of Cups. Here's our Knight of Cups, which is also very interesting because he looks to be like fleshed out, but you can see like his rib cage is almost like his armor, which is kind of interesting and cool. It can talk about maybe keeping our heart. I'm sorry, my fingers are all up in the camera. I'm so sorry, guys. But keeping our heart closed off, keeping our heart protected, which, again, I don't know that's kind of like the opposite of the Knight of Cups for me. I think of the Knight of Cups as kind of being a romantic and following their heart rather than keeping their heart guarded. But again, if we're looking at it in the shadow, it could make sense. Here's our Queen of Cups. She cracks me up too. I really do enjoy her. I'm going to move these over a little bit, guys. Sorry. You know, taking some me time. I'm not sure what's going on with those crows. You could wonder, you know, if the crows are somehow filling the bath or what that's about. Or maybe it's just her decor choice. We don't know. And here's your King of Cups. Again, wild. And I feel like, you know, for me, I find this artwork very evocative. I find it very, you know, my intuition kind of goes nuts. My intuition kind of looks at different things, like looks at the hand, looks at the blade. You know, what do I think this person was doing in this Ace of Cups? This is not cups anymore, swords. So yeah, I feel like there's a lot that you can go off of I feel like there's a lot of different directions you can take things in this deck. Again, I think that you just have to be in the right mindset and obviously be careful with your thought processes and patterns and kind of keep yourself in check while working with this deck. Because I feel like emotionally you can get carried away, especially if you're already in a dark place. I wouldn't come to this deck if I was already in, you know, an emotionally tumultuous place, or, you know, I was in a dark place, or I was just, you know, maybe if I'm like angry and I'm in a bad mood, I would be like, oh yeah, ugh, like that might work. But I think if you're going to come at this in anything other than like a healthy, yeah, I want to look at the shadow aspect of things place, I think this deck, you could get carried away. So your Three of Swords is traditional, but you have like an anatomically correct heart, which is cool. Your Four of Swords is super traditional, with the exception of he's kind of got that one sword oh my goodness, you guys, sword sticking out of his chest. So again, you can look at the shadow aspect of the Four of Swords, you know, using up all of your energy, resisting rest, making yourself ill, making yourself run down, making yourself sick. You know, for lack of that rest, you end up, you know, having to take that rest because you have no choice now physically, like you have to do it. Here's our Five of Swords. Again, I don't know that this really speaks to Five of Swords energy. I mean, it seems like it's aggressive, but a little less traditional. Six of Swords is way outside of the box, right? So we have kind of this figure who's run through with the swords, but it also looks like he's kind of pursuing. Oh, he is on a boat though, actually. I just made that out. See, that's what I'm saying. You kind of have to spend a little bit of time with this artwork because it is a little more abstract, a little more flowy. You miss things like that if you go too quickly, but he is definitely on a boat. He's just facing us as opposed to facing away. Interesting, right? Our Seven of Swords. We kind of have like this little demon devil guy going on. Sorry, I'm trying to keep these in the camera, but I also have a really hard time focusing on the artwork in the camera, so I'm trying to like look around the camera. This Eight of Swords I find very fascinating because to me, and maybe you agree, maybe not, this almost looks like a Jesus-like figure, like a Christ-like figure. And to me, while yes, probably a little more than controversial, it speaks to almost that martyr energy of the Eight of Swords. You know, being trapped in a mindset, being trapped by your own thought processes, being trapped by your own resistance to a situation. And I thought that was a very interesting choice. I find it, again, very evocative. I find it like kind of sends you off in different directions. Here's our Nine of Swords, very nightmarish, very Nine of Swordsy. And our Ten of Swords. I don't know why. Guys, I have a really strange sense of humor. So if you don't find yourself giggling along with me at some of these, I apologize. But I just find this Ten of Swords kind of funny. And I kind of find it fun that, you know, this is almost like a zombie type situation where he's got all these swords in him and he's still trying to get back up. Like he's still resisting that. Here's your Page of Swords. I like the fact that his eyes are kind of whited out because I think, you know, with swords we associate truth and clarity and whatnot. And I feel like, you know, you can kind of speak to, you know, justice being blind, truth being blind, but you could also kind of speak to using your intuition, to kind of suss out that truth. Again, you can kind of take these in all different directions. Here's our Knight of Swords. He's pretty cool too. I'd be a little scared to have this Knight of Swords come in for me. Our Queen of Swords. Again, the court cards, you might struggle a little bit to find that traditional energy of the court cards, but I don't know that you're meant to. Again, without a guidebook, I guess we'll never know what the true intention behind them is, but I think that's kind of part of the fun of this deck for me. Here we have the King of Swords. Now see, interesting again, because in shadow, it almost seems like the King of Swords is wearing a mask. Like he's not showing you his true face. Yeah, I don't know. I just find it really interesting. Here's our Ace of Wands. Isn't that beautiful? It's a tree, but it looks like a hand as well. I think that's really cool. This guy, he's so cute. He's my favorite. I don't know, I think he's adorable. His little Two of Wands. Oh, yeah, Wands. For some reason, I thought I said Pentacles. Never mind, never mind. Here's our Three of Wands. Again, a more traditional energy in the 2 and 3. I mean, he has antlers, so, and you can kind of jump off of that too. Like, who is he? Why does he have antlers? You know, who does that make you think of? Is there someone from mythology that it brings in? Is there someone deity-wise that it brings in? You can kind of really, again, just run with it. Here's the Four of Wands, another one of my favorites. It's traditional, but spooky. Our Five of Wands. We have these soldiers in a row here, which I think is an interesting take. They're not actually in combat, but it looks like they're either, you know, going to combat, coming back from combat. We're not sure, but interesting take. No rider, right? On our Six of Wands. What does that mean? Again, you can kind of go the shadow aspect instead of, you know, success and honor and victory. Perhaps the rider was, you know, removed from his horse. Maybe he was not successful. That's why we're not seeing him there. Here's our Seven of Wands. Again, I don't know that I get traditional Seven of Wands energy from this because, well, again, in shadow, he's kind of in a position where he cannot fight back. He's got his hands bound. He's kind of, it looks like he's on a pole. He's blindfolded. It's like a no-win situation. There's no way for him to defend himself. So yeah, see, there's a lot of shadow aspect just automatically kind of built into these. Again, with the Nine of Wands, he's run through. You know, he didn't make it through. He didn't get to the other side. Oh, that's the Eight of Wands. Sorry, guys. I'm jumping ahead of myself. So still kind of shadow. There's still kind of talk of moving too quickly. Perhaps he ran into these wands and that's how he was impaled. He had swift, quick movement, but maybe it just wasn't the time for that. He should have been a little more careful. Here's our Nine of Wands, a little more traditional. And our Ten of Wands, which I think is also, you know, leans more towards the traditional side. Obviously with a much more expressive face. Like this person is not just burdened, man. They are overwhelmed. They are breaking down. Here's our Page of Wands. Our Knight of Wands, again with the antlers, I think is really cool. This Queen of Wands is so pretty. Like she's this thing of, she's the stuff of nightmares, but I just think she's so cool. And again, we have like that kind of antler horned energy going on, which I think is really cool. But kind of her coming out of the woods is, I don't know, it gives me some feelings. And here's our King of Wands. He looks like a tree knot, which I think is also really cool. Sorry guys, my camera turned off on me there. But yeah, so he is like a tree knot, which I could see some people having a little bit of an issue with because I feel like trees to me, okay, yes, wands, wood, got it, but it's not really speaking to the fire energy of wands, him being a tree. It kind of screams more pentacles to me, but yeah, it is what it is, right? So anyway, sorry guys, I talk so much. This video is going to be so long. So here we have the Ace of Pentacles, and I think it's an interesting choice that the pentacle is burnt into or cut into the palm of their hand, which I think is an interesting take on, you know, finances, wealth, greed. Again, I feel like you can read that pretty deeply. Here's your Two of Pentacles. She's not exactly juggling. She's just kind of pointing to them. So there's that. Our Three of Pentacles, I also love it being the gateway into the cemetery. Again, I don't know. It's traditional in the sense that you have the archway like you would in the traditional Three of Pentacles. But obviously no people. So you can kind of play off of that as well. Your Four of Pentacles, he's pretty traditional looking. Here's our Five, again, a little more traditional looking. Our Six of Pentacles, it is traditional, but I do find it fun that these look like corpses down here. Like they're placing the silver dollars over the, or the pentacles in this case, over the corpse's eyes and their third eye as well, which I think is a great metaphysical touch to this card rather than just leaving it at the eyes. They included the third eye in the Six of Pentacles. The Seven of Pentacles, he's digging a grave, which again kind of cracks me up. Is he making a zombie? Is he making a vampire? We don't know. We don't know. But that's a different way to look at it, right? He's waiting for that to spring up. And here we have the Eight of Pentacles. We have like kind of this Zodiac killer vibe going on in the Eight of Pentacles, which is again very interesting. Talking about the satisfaction of hard work and the payoff of a job well done from a very different point of view. Our Nine of Pentacles, which I would argue, you know, who is more Nine of Pentacles energy in this card? Is it this figure or is it this bird plucking out his eye? That's another thing that you can kind of dive into, right? Now, this Ten of Pentacles, I struggle with immensely. And then I finally think I figured it out because I looked at this and I was like, what is this that I'm looking at? I have no idea. But then when I thought of this as like tanned hide and then thought about that in the sense of legacy, what you leave behind, it started to make a lot more sense as far as, you know, tanned hide or tanned skin. We don't know where the skin came from, being the legacy that's left behind when this person, animal, creature died. So again, a very interesting take on that Ten of Pentacles. Here's our Page of Pentacles, again with a pentacle carved into their third eye, which is interesting. You can take that a lot of different directions. Our Knight of Pentacles, who looks like he's actually scratching the inverted pentagram into his chest. A little creepy. Here's our Queen of Pentacles. She's pretty cool. And there's a lot going on in this image as well. She's got her eyes are whited out, almost as though she's possessed with her arms out to her side. She's got the pentacle here that she seems to be focusing on. And this horned, almost devil figure kind of looming in the background. Again, big thoughts that come with this card. I read this, you know, it just, I don't know. My brain starts like zapping a million different things. And here we have our final card, the King of Pentacles. You can see his crown has fallen off. Someone has him by his hair. He's headless. He's decapitated. And again, it can talk to, you know, it can speak about the abuse of King of Pentacles energy, the shadow of King of Pentacles energy. You know, I like it. I don't know. I just think it's really deep. I think it's really clever. I'm going to zoom back out. Okay, so that is the Ritual Abuse Tarot. The cardstock through, I'm assuming this deck did come through, it wasn't Make Playing Cards. I said it at the beginning. Goodness gracious. Hold on, you guys. Oh my goodness, right? Printer Studio. That was it. Sorry, guys. I had to look it up again. I'm assuming this came through Printer Studio. I bought my copy secondhand, but it did come in the white box, so I'm assuming that that is where this also came from. The cardstock is very thin. Again, it is kind of lightly linened. It's not like that very, very textured linen. It's very flexible, but it feels good. Like it almost feels like a good like playing cardstock. It feels like it'll stand up to some use. It is a little slippery, so if you are a messy shuffler like I am, be prepared to throw some cards. But I think, again, because of how thin and flexible it is, like it just shuffles like a dream if you are a riffle shuffler. So that is the Ritual Abuse Tarot by Ryan Sheffield. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys found it as interesting as I did. That's why I wanted to share it, because this deck does not come up often, and I just think it's so clever and dark and interesting and cerebral in a way. So thanks for hanging out with me, guys. If you haven't already, please subscribe, hit the notification bell, hit the like button, comment, all those good things. Let me know if there's another deck that you want to see from my collection. Obviously, you wouldn't know from this video, but I have plenty of deck collection videos right on my channel. I love doing walkthroughs. I love just talking about what the cards make me feel, see, think. So yeah, let me know. I love you guys. I'll see you later. Bye.